Grace Harper drove her swollen fist into the cabin door so hard, the splintered wood opened her knuckles, and she did not stop pounding. Behind her in the screaming Wyoming snow, her 6-year-old had stopped shivering. Stopped shivering meant dying. The door cracked open. A man with winter in his eyes looked down at the belly that nearly touched the threshold, at the blood on her hand, at the 2 small boys clinging to her skirt. He said one word. No. Grace did not beg. Grace did not cry. Grace looked that cowboy dead in the eye. Before we go any further, friend, if you've ever known a woman who refused to break, who carried her whole world on tired shoulders and still kept walking, please take a moment right now and subscribe to this channel. Hit that bell so you don't miss a single story. And down in the comments, tell me the city or the town you're listening from tonight. I love seeing how far these stories travel from a small porch in Tennessee all the way to a kitchen in Oregon. Stay with me until the very end of this one. I promise you, what happens to Grace Harper will stay with you long after the snow melts. Then look at my 6-year-old when he dies in your yard. The wind shoved the words against Jack Turner's chest like a hand. He didn't move. The woman on his porch didn't move either. Behind her, the older boy, 10, maybe 11, all bone and frozen eyelashes, was holding his little brother up by the back of the coat, the way a man holds up a fence post that's already given out. "Ma'am," Jack said. "Don't ma'am me, mister. You can't be out in this." "I know I can't be out in this. That is precisely the trouble." Her voice was hoarse, low, steady. Not the voice of a woman who had come to plead. The voice of a woman who had already decided what she would do if he closed the door. Jack's jaw worked. He looked past her into the white nothing and saw only what he had seen for 15 winters, pine and snow, and the long road that led to no one. There was no horse, no wagon, no tracks behind them because the storm had eaten the tracks. "How'd you get up here?" he said. "I walked." "From where?" "From down." "Ma'am." "Grace." She drew a breath that shook her whole frame, and her hand went to the underside of her belly, the way a woman's hand goes when the child inside has just turned. "My name's Grace Harper. This is Tom. This is little Sam. I am not asking you to take us in for the winter. I am asking you for one night. One night and a fire. Tomorrow, at first light, I will walk back down that mountain, and you will never see me again." "You can't walk back down that mountain." "Then that ain't your problem, is it?" Something flickered in Jack's face, almost a smile, almost. "You always this stubborn." "My husband used to say so." "Where's he dead?" The word hung there in the cold between them like a bell that had stopped ringing. The little boy Sam made a small sound. Not a cry. Smaller than a cry. The sound a child makes when his body has nothing left to spend on crying. Jack stepped back from the door. "Get in here." Grace did not thank him. She did not move at first either. She turned to the older boy and put her hand on his cheek, and the boy nodded once, and only then did she gather them in front of her and walk them across the threshold, like a woman walking livestock out of a flooded pen. Careful, deliberate last to enter. Jack shut the door behind them, and the storm shut up with it. "Coats off the boys," he said. "By the stove. Not too close. Tom, that you." "Yes, sir." "You take your brother's coat. Don't pull. Wet wool tears. Your mama." "I've got it," Grace said. "Ma'am, you can barely—" "I've got it, mister." Jack put his hands up, palms out, the way a man does to a horse that has been beaten by another man. He went to the stove and opened the iron door and fed it 3 pieces of split pine with the deliberate slowness of a man whose hands knew exactly how much heat the room could take. Behind him, he heard Grace lower herself to a chair. He heard the chair complain. He heard her exhale once hard, the way a person exhales when their body has been holding a scream for hours. He did not turn around. "There's broth in that pot," he said. "It ain't fancy. It'll do. There's bread in the box yonder, day old. It'll do. There's a cot in the back room, one. Boys can share. They can share a floor too. They've done it before. Boys take the cot. Mr. Turner." He turned then. "How'd you know my name?" A long pause. The little one had crawled up on the bench by the stove and was watching the two of them with eyes like wet glass. The older boy was unlacing a boot with fingers that wouldn't bend. "My husband knew you," Grace said. "Your husband." Caleb Harper. The name landed on Jack like a board across the back. He did not flinch outwardly, because he had spent 15 years training himself not to flinch outwardly, but inside something old broke loose and rolled. "Caleb Harper," he said. "Yes." "Out of Cheyenne." "Yes." "Federal Land Office." "He was a clerk there." "Yes." Jack sat down on the edge of the wood box because his legs had decided to sit down without consulting him. "Caleb's dead. 3 weeks." "How?" Grace looked at her boys. Tom had gotten the boot off and was working on the second one. Sam had laid his head against the bench and his eyes were closing. "Boys," she said softly, "you eat what you can and then you sleep. You hear me? You sleep. Tom, you watch your brother's color. You tell me if his lips go blue again." "Yes, ma'am." "Don't ma'am your mama, child, I birthed you." "Yes, mama." She turned back to Jack and her voice went lower than the wind. "They said it was a robbery. On the road between his office and our house. They said 3 men jumped him for his pay. They left him in a ditch, mister. They left my husband in a ditch like a dog the wagon hit. There was no pay on him because it was payday and he hadn't been paid yet. Anybody in that office could have told them that, so it wasn't a robbery." "What was it?" "It was the papers." Jack was very still. "What papers, Mrs. Harper?" "Land titles, survey maps, deeds that don't match the deeds on file. He'd been finding them for months. Plots up north of the Sweetwater that 2 and 3 different men own on paper, only one of them holds the seal, and the seal don't match what's recorded. He told me a federal judge was the name behind half of them. He told me he was scared. He told me—" Her voice caught only for half a breath, and she put it back down. "He told me if anything ever happened to him, I was to go to a man named Jack Turner up in the Bear Paw country who used to ride for the marshal's office. He said you were the only honest man he ever met inside that mess." "Caleb Harper said that." "He said that." Jack rubbed his face with both hands hard, the way a man rubs his face when he is trying to scrub a memory off the inside of his skull. "Caleb Harper was a fool to put my name in your mouth. He's not a fool. He's dead. Same difference in this country." "You don't believe that?" "Don't I?" "No, sir, you do not. A man who don't believe in the difference between fool and dead don't keep a stove this hot for visitors he wasn't expectin'." That got him. Jack let a sound out through his nose that wasn't quite a laugh. "Mrs. Harper." "Grace." "Grace. How far along are you?" 8 months, give or take?" "Give or take." "Babies don't keep a calendar, mister." "How many miles you walked today?" "Don't know." "Guess." 12, maybe 15. We came up from the trading post at Willow Bend yesterday afternoon." "Yesterday." "Slept in a stand of fur last night. I had a tarp. The boys held each other." "You slept out in this with them boys?" "We did." "In your condition?" "Mister, my condition is the only condition I have got. I cannot trade it in for a better one. So yes, I slept out in this with my boys in my condition because the alternative was somebody finding us in a town." "Somebody." "Somebody." "You think they're still coming?" "I know they're coming. They'll lose us in this storm. They'll find us when it breaks." Jack stood. He walked to the small window. The world outside was a wall of white that had no top, no bottom, no horizon. He had loved that view for 15 years because it was clean. Tonight, it looked like a thing that was hiding men. "How many?" he said. 3 at least. Could be more. The judge has a long arm." "What's his name?" "Reuben Vance." Jack closed his eyes. "Reuben Vance," he repeated. "You know him." "I know him." "Then you know what he is." "I know what he is." There was a quiet between them then that was not the quiet of strangers. It was the quiet of 2 people who had just discovered they had been walking around the edges of the same wound for years without knowing the other was there. "Mr. Turner," Grace said. Jack. "Jack, I did not come here to put my trouble on you. I came here because my husband told me you were a man who would not hand a child back into a storm. I came here for one night. I want that understood." "It's understood. In the morning, we will go. In the morning, we will see. In the morning, we will go." He turned from the window. She was sitting very straight in the chair, one hand under her belly, the other flat on her thigh, and there was steel in her face that the cold and the walking and the widowhood had not touched. He had seen that look exactly twice in his life on a woman, and the other time had been on his own mother the night his father did not come home from the war. "Eat," he said. "I will. Boys are already gone." She looked. Tom had folded forward over the bench with his head in his arms. Sam was already curled against him, breathing the small, fast breaths of a child who had finally stopped being afraid long enough to fall. Grace's face changed. For a moment, it was not the face of a woman who had walked through a blizzard. It was the face of a mother looking at her sons asleep, and Jack had to look away from it because it was a private thing, and he was not the man it belonged to. "Bring 'em to the back room," he said. "Cots narrow, but they're little. I'll carry Sam." "You will not." "Mr. Grace, you will not lift that child. I will lift that child. You will walk in front of me, and you will open the door." She opened her mouth to argue, and then she did not argue. She stood, and the standing took her 2 tries, and she did not apologize for the 2 tries, and she walked to the back room door, and she opened it, and Jack carried Sam through with the absent, careful hands of a man who had not held a child in a long, long time, but had not forgotten how. He set the boy on the cot. He went back. He carried Tom. He set the boy beside his brother. He pulled the wool blanket over both of them and tucked it under their chins, the way a man tucks a blanket who has been tucked himself once by somebody who loved him. Grace watched him from the doorway. He came back out. He shut the door behind him soft. "Sit," he said. Sit, Grace." She sat. He set a tin bowl in front of her and ladled broth into it from the pot. He cut the day-old bread with a knife that had a bone handle worn smooth by his thumb. He set the bread beside the bowl. He poured coffee from a pot that had been on the back of the stove since morning into a cup that had a chip in the rim. "Eat slow," he said. "Your stomach's small right now, even if the rest of you ain't, and you'll waste it if you eat fast." "That a fat joke, Mr. Turner?" "That a medical observation, Mrs. Harper?" She looked up at him, and for the first time since she had hit his door, the corner of her mouth moved. Not a smile, the ghost of one. "My husband used to say I had a tongue could strip paint." "Your husband wasn't wrong." "You knew him." "I knew him a little. Long time ago, before he was a clerk. He worked under me one summer when I was running an investigation out of Laramie. He never told me. He wouldn't have. It didn't end well for me. I left the service." "Why?" Jack sat down across from her. He put his hands flat on the table. "Because I worked a case once," he said, "where a powerful man had a weaker man hung for something the powerful man done. And I had the proof, and I took it to the court. And the court looked at my proof, and the court looked at the powerful man, and the court hung the weaker man anyway. And I rode out that night, and I did not stop riding for a year. And then I built this cabin. And you stayed. I stayed. 15 years. 15 years. She ate a spoonful of broth. She closed her eyes around it. He watched her face do what a body's face does when warmth gets inside it for the first time in a day and a half. That small loosening, the smallest kindness a person can do for themselves. "Jack." "Ma'am." "Grace." "Grace." "You ran from it." "I did." "My husband didn't." "No, he didn't. And look where it got him." "It got him killed, Jack. But it did not get him forgotten. There is a difference." He didn't answer. She ate another spoonful. She tore the bread in half and dipped it. "You've been alone up here a long time," she said. "I have." "Why?" "Same reason most men are alone. Because the company of other men got to feeling worse than the company of myself. And women? Same. That's a lie. Beg pardon. That's a lie, Jack Turner. A man don't carry a child to bed the way you just carried mine if he stopped wanting people 15 years ago. You wanted people. You just decided wantin' was dangerous. He looked at her a long time. Your husband, he said finally, was outmatched in his marriage. He was. He said so himself often. She set the spoon down. Her hand went under her belly again, and this time her face did a thing, a tiny tightening across the eyes gone almost before it came. Grace. It's nothing. How long have you been having those? Having what? Don't, Grace. How long? She let out a slow breath. Since this afternoon. How far apart? I haven't been counting, Jack. I've been walking. Lay down. Lay down on that bench. Now. Jack. That baby is coming. That baby is not coming tonight. Jack Turner, I will not allow it. Ma'am, with respect, I do not believe that's a thing within your jurisdiction. She started to argue. Then her face changed again, harder this time, and her hand gripped the edge of the table, and the knuckles on the hand that had been bleeding on his door went white around the broken skin. Oh, she said very quietly. Yeah. Oh no. Grace, look at me. Jack, I cannot have this baby tonight. It is too soon. It is a month too soon. I cannot. Look at me. She looked at him. Her eyes were the eyes of a woman who had been brave for so long that the bravery had worn down to the bone of her, and what was left underneath was the soft thing she had been protecting all along. I have delivered 3 foals and 1 calf and 1 baby, he said low and calm, and the baby was my sister, and she lived, and she's 52 years old this fall, and ornery as a bag of cats. So you are going to lay down on that bench, and you are going to do exactly what I tell you. Do you understand me? Jack, do you understand me, Grace Harper? She swallowed. The wind hit the cabin, and the cabin did not move because Jack Turner had built it with his own hands 15 winters ago, and it was a thing built to hold against weather. I understand you, she said. Good. Jack. Yeah. Don't you walk out that door. He looked at her. The cold cowboy who had not let a soul past his threshold in a decade and a half. The man whose first word to her had been no. Grace Harper, he said, I ain't going anywhere. Outside, the storm leaned into the cabin like something that wanted in. Inside in the back room, 2 boys slept under 1 blanket, and on the bench by the stove, their mother gripped the edge of the wood and breathed the long, slow breath of a woman whose body had decided against every plan she had made that the next thing was going to happen now. Jack put another log in the stove. He set a kettle on. He rolled up his sleeves. The first wave doubled her over the bench before Jack got the kettle on. Easy. Don't tell me easy, Jack Turner. Breathe. I am breathin'. Breathe slower. You breathe slower. He almost laughed. He didn't. He set a clean folded sheet by the stove and pulled the bench closer to the heat with one hand, without looking the way a man rearranges a room he has lived in alone long enough to know it by feel. Grace. What? How was the last one? What about it? Was it fast? Sam came in 4 hours. Tom took 2 days, the stubborn. She sucked in a breath. The stubborn little Harper that he is. This one feels like Sam. Then we got time, but not a lot. I know we ain't got a lot. Jack, my body is the one currently informing me. You always sass like this in labor. I sass like this awake. I sass like this asleep. My mother said I came out sassin' the midwife. Lord help us. Lord help you, mister, I'm the one workin'. He poured boiling water into a basin. He set a knife in the water. He moved around her without crowding her, and Grace noticed it through the haze of pain, noticed the way he did not hover, noticed the way a man who had been alone 15 years still knew exactly how much room to leave a person in trouble. The next contraction hit harder. She gripped the edge of the bench and her face went the color of milk left out. Jack. I'm here. If something happens to me, nothing is happening to you. Listen to me, Grace. Listen. He stopped. He came around in front of her. He went down on one knee slow the way a man goes down on one knee in front of a horse that has been driven too far. I'm listening. In the lining of my coat, inside the left pocket. There's a seam been cut and sewed back. The papers are in there, all of them. The deeds, the survey notes, the names. Caleb's notes in his own hand. There is a journal, 2 leather, no bigger than your palm. You promise me, Jack? Don't. Promise me. If this baby comes and I don't, you take those papers and my boys, and you ride for Denver, and you put them in the hand of a man named August Pell at the Rocky Mountain News. He was Caleb's friend at school. He'll know what to do. Grace. Promise me. Grace, you ain't dying on my floor. Promise me anyway. He looked at her, and the wind hit the side of the cabin, and the stove ticked, and somewhere in the back room, one of the boys turned over in his sleep. I promise you, he said. Say his name. August Pell, Rocky Mountain News, Denver. Good. Now lie back. I cannot lie back. Jack, this baby is sitting on my spine. Then sit forward and grip my arms. I'll bruise you. I will survive being bruised by a pregnant widow, Grace, on my honor. She laughed once, a broken sound, and then the laugh cut off because the next wave took her, and she did grip his arms, and she did bruise him, and Jack Turner did not move. The door of the back room opened a crack. Tom stood there. 11 years old, hair stuck to his forehead, one sock on, one sock off, eyes the size of plates. Mama. Tommy, you go back to bed. Mama, I'm fine, baby. You ain't fine. Tom Harper, your mother said go back to bed. The boy did not move. His chin came up. His chin came up the way Caleb's chin used to come up. Jack saw it and felt the floor of his chest drop an inch, because he had not thought about Caleb Harper's chin in a decade. I ain't going back to bed, Mama. I'm the man now. Tom, Pa said. Pa said before he went out that morning. He said, Tom, you're the man now, anything happens. He said it. So I am staying. Grace's eyes filled. They did not spill. Grace Harper did not spill in front of her sons. Then come here, Tommy. The boy came. He stood by her shoulder. He put his small, cold hand on her sleeve, and he did not flinch when the next contraction made her crush his fingers. Tom, Jack said quietly. Yes, sir. There's a clean cloth on the shelf above the basin. Bring it. Don't drop it on the floor. If you drop it, get another one. Yes, sir. After that, you sit by your mother's head, and you hold her hand, and you talk to her. You hear me? You talk. You tell her about anything. You tell her about that one-eyed dog you used to have. You tell her about your favorite supper. You don't stop talking. Yes, sir. Can you do that? I can do that, sir. Good man. Tom went. Tom came back. Tom sat. Tom started talking about a dog named Buck, who had eaten a whole pie off a windowsill the summer he was 7, and Grace between waves let out a sound that was half a sob and half a laugh, because she remembered the pie, and she remembered the dog, and she remembered Caleb laughing at the table about it, with flour still on his sleeve. The wave after that one was bad. Grace's whole body locked. Her eyes rolled back for half a second. Jack saw it, and his hand was on her face before the half second was done. Grace. Grace, eyes on me. Eyes. I'm here. Stay here. I'm here, Jack. Tom, keep talking. Yes, sir. Mama, you remember the time Sam ate a whole jar of preserves and Pa said, I remember. Pa said Sam was gonna sweat jam for a week. I remember, baby. Jack felt under the sheet. His face did not change. A man's face that did not change in that moment was a man's face Grace had learned to read in her years, married to a federal clerk who came home with bad news he was trying to spare her. Jack. Yeah. What is it? It's turned. What does that mean? It means the baby's facing the wrong way. Jack. It's all right. Jack, what does that mean? It means I gotta turn it, from the outside, before the next big one. Have you done that before? On a foal. Jack Turner. Grace Harper. You got two choices, and we got about 90 seconds to pick. I can try, or we can wait, and if we wait, the cord can wrap. You tell me which. She closed her eyes. She opened them. Try. Tom, hold your mama's hand with both of yours. Both, son. Now. Yes, sir. Grace, I am going to push hard, and it is going to hurt worse than anything that has hurt yet tonight, and I am sorry. Don't be sorry. Be quick. He was quick. She did not scream. She bit down on the inside of her own cheek until she tasted iron, and she did not scream because her boys were in the cabin, and her boys had heard enough screaming in 3 weeks to last a childhood. Jack's hands moved. His face was a stone. Then his face changed just at the eyes, just for a flicker, and he exhaled. There. Jack. It turned. Good girl. Good baby. Grace, you with me? I'm with you. One more big one and we got a baby. Jack. Yeah. My husband used to call you a stubborn old wolf. Did he? He said stubborn old wolves was what the world ran short on. He wasn't wrong about much. He wasn't wrong about you. The next wave came. It was the biggest one. Grace bore down. Tom held both her hands and counted the way Jack told him to count. 1 Mississippi. 2 Mississippi 3. His small voice steady and his small face the color of paper, and somewhere between 4 and 5. Mississippi. Jack Turner, the cold cowboy who had not let a soul past his door in 15 winters, caught a baby boy in his bare hands. The cabin went silent. The baby did not cry. Grace felt the silence before she heard it. She lifted her head. Jack. He did not answer. He had the child face down across his forearm, and he was rubbing the small back with the flat of his hand, fast, small circles. Jack. Hush. Jack. Hush, Grace. He turned the baby. He put his mouth over the small mouth and the small nose, and he breathed 1 short breath. 2. He pulled back. He rubbed the back again. He breathed again. Tom whispered, Mama. Shh, Tommy. Mama is the baby. Shh, baby. Jack rubbed harder. His jaw was set. His hands were the steadiest hands in the territory, and they did not stop moving. Come on, he said low, like a man talking to a horse he loved. Come on now. Come on, little man. You walked all this way. You don't quit on us in the doorway. He breathed into the baby once more. The baby coughed. The baby coughed, and the baby pulled in air, and the baby opened his mouth and let out a sound that was not loud, that was not strong, but that was a sound, a real sound, the sound of a small new person announcing he was in the room. Grace made a noise. Jack would remember the rest of his life. It was not a word. It was the sound a woman makes when the thing she has been afraid to ask for has been handed to her. He's breathin', Jack said. His voice cracked on it. He did not try to fix the crack. Grace, he's breathin'. He's little. He's real little, but he's breathin'. Give him to me. Soon as I cut him loose, darlin'. He didn't seem to notice he had called her darlin'. Neither did she. Tom did, but Tom was 11 and had the sense of a much older man, and Tom filed it away without a word. Jack worked. Jack tied. Jack cut. Jack wrapped the baby in the clean cloth Tom had brought, and he wrapped him again in a square of soft flannel. He pulled from a chest at the foot of the bench. Flannel that had been folded in that chest for 15 years. Flannel that had been bought once for a child. Jack Turner had never spoken of. Not to a single living person, and he laid the baby on Grace's chest. Grace looked at her son. Her son looked back at her with the dark, unfocused eyes of a person who had just arrived from somewhere very far away. Hello, she whispered. Hello, you. Hello, my brave one. You came early. You came in a storm. You came to a stranger's house. You are going to be such trouble, baby boy. You are going to be such good trouble. Tom touched the baby's hand. The baby's hand closed around Tom's finger. Mama. Yes, Tommy. What's his name? Grace looked up at Jack. Jack was at the basin washing his hands, and his shoulders were doing something that if a man did not know better, a man might have called shaking. Jack, Grace said. Yeah. Come here. He came. He did not look at her at first. He looked at the baby. Caleb, Grace said. Caleb Jack Harper. Jack's hand stopped on the towel. Grace. That's his name. Grace, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. That's his name. He looked at her then. And whatever 15 years of solitude had built up behind Jack Turner's eyes, whatever wall, whatever shutter, whatever quiet, careful nothing. It cracked just along one seam, and Grace Harper saw the crack, and Grace Harper, even half dead with what she had just done, gave him the smallest nod as if to say, I see you. I will not say anything, but I see you. That's a good name, Jack said. His voice was not quite his. It is. It's a real good name, Grace. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Grace. The baby made a small sound. Grace adjusted him. Tom climbed up onto the bench beside her, careful as a cat, and put his head on her shoulder, and within 4 breaths, he was asleep again because he was 11, and he had been the man for 3 weeks, and he was very, very tired. Jack took a step back from them. I'm going to step out, he said. Jack, just to the porch, need air. Jack, in this weather. 1 minute, I swear it, 1 minute. She let him go. He pulled on his coat. He pulled on his hat. He opened the door no wider than his own shoulders, and he stepped out, and he shut the door behind him. The wind hit him in the face like a hand. He stood on the porch with both palms flat on the porch rail, and he let his head hang between his shoulders, and he breathed in, and his breath came white and ragged in front of him. Caleb Jack Harper. He said it once out loud to the storm where no one could hear it. Caleb Jack. The storm took the name and threw it down the mountain. He straightened. He wiped his face with the back of his glove. He turned to go back inside. And that was when he saw it. Down the slope, maybe 400 yards out, just at the edge of where a man's eye could still pick a thing out of white, a flicker. A small orange flicker. Gone. Then again. Gone. Then again. A match. Cupped. Lit a second time because the first had blown out. Jack Turner went very still. A match in this storm meant a man. A man cupping a match in this storm meant a man trying not to be seen. A man trying not to be seen 400 yards from his cabin on the night Grace Harper had put a federal judge's name in his kitchen meant exactly one thing. Jack Turner stood on the porch of the cabin he had built 15 winters ago to be alone in, and he watched the small orange flicker in the snow, and he did not move, and he did not breathe. And inside the cabin behind him, a baby that had been born 9 minutes ago made a small new sound, and Jack heard it through the door, and his hand went very slowly down to the gun belt that had been hanging on the peg by that door for 11 years untouched. He took the belt down. He buckled it on. He stepped back inside, slow with the gun belt buckled, and his face arranged the way a man arranges his face when he does not want a woman who has just given birth to know what he has seen. Grace knew anyway. Jack? Easy. Jack Turner, what? Grace, you just had a baby. I need you to lay still for... What did you see? He met her eyes. A match. How far? 400 yards, south slope. How many? Seen one. Don't mean one. Could be a hunter. Could be. It ain't a hunter. No. She closed her eyes for one breath. One. Then her eyes opened, and the steel that had walked her up that mountain came back into her face, and the woman who had been crying soft at her newborn's hairline 30 seconds ago was gone, and the woman who had buried a husband 3 weeks back was sitting on Jack Turner's bench again. Tom. Yes, Mama. Wake your brother. Quiet. No talking. Pull boots on him. Pull his coat. Don't tie nothing till I say. Yes, Mama. The boy was off the bench before she finished. 11 years old and moving like he had been waiting for the order his whole short life. Grace. Don't, Jack. You cannot ride. I can ride? You cannot ride, Grace. You have a 9-minute-old child on your chest and you are... I am what? You are bleedin'. Women bleed. Women been bleedin' through worse than this since the start of the world. Saddle me a horse. Grace. Saddle. Me. A horse. There is one horse in that barn, Grace. One. I sold the other in October. Old gray mare, and she will not carry you 2 boys, a baby, and me down a mountain in this. Then she'll carry me and the baby. The boys ride with you. And what do I ride? You walk. Grace. Don't grace me, Jack Turner. You said to pick fast. Well, I'm pickin' fast. He took a step toward her. He went down on one knee again, the way he had gone down 20 minutes ago, when she made him promise about August Pell, and he put one hand flat on the bench beside her hip. Listen to me. I'm listenin'. If we run tonight in this storm with that baby don't make it to morning. I am tellin' you the plain truth, and I am tellin' you because I respect you too much to tell you anything else. He is a month early. He is breathin' shallow. The cold will take him before the men do. Her face did not move. Her jaw did. Then what? Then we don't run. Then they take us. They don't take us neither. Jack, this cabin, he said low, I built with my own hands. The walls are double-thick pine. The door is 2 inches solid with a crossbar I forged myself. There are exactly 2 windows, and they are too high and too narrow for a grown man to come through. There is a root cellar under the floor of the back room, with a hatch you would not see if you were standing on it. I have lived up here 15 years, and I have not always lived up here in peace, Grace. I have made enemies in my time. This cabin was built by a man who expected one day that someone would come. She stared at him. You built a fort. I built a home that could be a fort. How many men can you hold off? Depends how many there are, and how stupid they are. Reuben Vance don't send stupid men. No, he don't. Jack. Yeah. I have got 3 children in this cabin. I know. I have got 2 who can walk and 1 who is 9 minutes old. I know, Grace. If you are wrong, if I am wrong, I will be wrong with you. I will not be wrong from a saddle a mile away having left you. Are we clear? She looked at him a long second. We are clear. Good. Jack. Yeah. The papers. What about 'em? Get them out of the coat. Now, before anything. He went to the peg. He took her coat down. He found the seam. His knife came out, and the seam came open, and a packet of folded oilcloth slid into his palm, heavier than it looked. Inside the oilcloth papers. Inside the papers, a small leather journal no bigger than his hand. He did not open them. He set them on the table. They stay with you, he said. Jack, they stay with you, Grace, under your shawl, against the baby. If I go down tonight, you are the one who walks them off this mountain, not me, you and Tom. Jack Turner, are we clear? She did not answer at first. The baby on her chest made the small wet sound of a small new mouth, and her hand came up automatic to cup the back of his head. We are clear. Good. He turned to Tom. Son. Yes, sir. Listen close. You are not a man tonight. You are a boy. You are the best boy I have seen in a long time, but you are a boy, and tonight that is your job. Your job is to take your brother and crawl under that bed in the back room. There is a hatch. You pull it up by the iron ring. You go down. There is a lantern on the 3rd step. You do not light it unless I yell down to you to light it. You stay there. You hold your brother's mouth shut if you have to. You do not come up until your mother or I tell you. Are we clear? Yes, sir. If we don't tell you, he said slower, if no one tells you for a long, long time, you wait until the sun comes up twice. Twice, Tom. 2 sunrises. Then you come up. Then you take this packet. He picked the oilcloth back up off the table and put it in the boy's hand. and you walk to Willow Bend, and you find a man named August Pell at the Rocky Mountain News in Denver. Say his name. August Pell, Rocky Mountain News, Denver. Good boy. Yes, sir. You will not need to do any of that. But if you do, you will do it. Yes. Yes, sir. Go. The boy turned. He picked up his sleeping brother off the bench, 3 years younger and 20 pounds lighter, and he carried him toward the back room with an effort that turned his small face purple, and Grace did not help him, because Grace knew her son, and Grace knew that some things a boy needs to do himself the first time he does them, even if it costs him. Jack went to the door. He cracked it. He looked. The flicker was gone now. That was worse than seeing it. Grace. Yeah. Off the bench, behind the stove, now. She moved. Slow, but she moved. The bench was in line of sight to the door. Behind the stove was not. She slid down to the floor with her back against the rough log wall, and the baby against her breast under her shawl and the oilcloth packet between the baby and her body, and she pulled the heavy quilt off the back of the chair and pulled it across her knees, and she did not make a sound when her body told her what her body thought of all this movement. Jack pulled the table on its side. He dragged it across the room. He set it up against the door at an angle not flat. A man who shoulders a flat table goes through it. A man who shoulders an angled table breaks his collarbone and learns something. He kicked the chairs into the corner. He pulled the small braided rug back from in front of the stove and tossed it over the bench where Grace had been. What's the rug for? Blood. Jackie, you're bleeding through, Grace. They look in that window before they hit the door. I do not want them to see fresh blood on the bench. Fresh blood on a bench tells a man somebody in this cabin cannot run. Smart. I have done this before. Have you? Once. How'd it end? I'm here. The other man. He ain't. She let out a breath that was almost a laugh. He went to the back wall. He reached behind the smoked hams hanging there and pulled out a Winchester rifle he had not touched since '74. He worked the lever. He worked it again. He thumbed shells out of a tin and into the loading gate, 6 of them slow the way a man loads a gun he has loved. The wind hit the cabin. The wind hit the cabin again. The third time the wind hit the cabin, it knocked twice on the door first. Jack and Grace both went still. The third knock when it came was a man's knuckle. Hello, the cabin! Jack's eyes flicked to Grace. Grace put one finger to her lips and one hand over the baby's mouth, soft, just resting. Hello, the cabin. Friend out here. Lost in the storm. Could use a fire. Jack did not answer. Hello inside. I see your smoke. I ain't armed, mister. A man who said I ain't armed unprompted was a man who was armed. Jack moved. He went on the balls of his feet to the side of the door, the rifle low along his thigh. He did not stand in front of the door. A man who stood in front of a door in this country was a man who had not lived long enough to learn. How many in your party? Jack called, voice flat. Voice the voice of a man who had been woken from sleep and was annoyed about it. Just me, friend. Just you, in this storm. Got separated from my horse. Long way to be separated from a horse. Yes, sir. I know it. I am cold, mister. I am awful cold. Your name. A pause. A pause was the worst thing a man could do at that moment, and the man on the porch did it. Bill Carver? Bill Carver. Yes, sir. Bill Carver? I do not know any Bill Carver. No, sir. I don't expect you would. Bill Carver, are you alone? Told you I was. Tell me again. I am alone, mister. Jack looked at Grace. Grace shook her head once small. Bill? Jack called, and his voice softened, just a hair, just enough to sound like the voice of a man who was about to be neighborly. You step back from that door. You step back 10 paces. You stand where I can see you out the south window. You take your hat off so I can see your face. You do that, and I will open this door. Another pause. Yes, sir. Jack waited. He counted to 4. On 4, he heard a small sound from the porch that was not the sound of a man walking back 10 paces. It was the sound of a man laying something down soft on wood. "Grace? I hear it. He just set something on my porch." "I know." The next thing on the porch was not a knock. The next thing on the porch was a boot, and the boot hit the door not at the latch, but 6 inches to the left of it, where a man who knew cabins knew the crossbar bracket sat, and Jack Turner had been waiting for that exact boot from the moment the man on the porch had said Bill Carver. And Jack Turner fired through the door before the boot landed twice. The man on the porch made a sound a man makes once. He fell. Jack did not move. Jack did not exhale. Jack levered another shell. A second voice, different voice further back, further left, yelled, "God damn it, Hollis. So there were 2. "There's 2, Grace whispered. "Heard him. He just named the dead one." "Heard him. At least 2, Jack." "I know." The second man, whoever he was smarter than the first. He did not yell again. He did not move where Jack could hear him. The wind ate his footsteps. A long minute passed. 2, 3. The baby on Grace's chest stirred. Grace's hand went over his small mouth, so soft, just resting. "Jack," she breathed. "Don't talk. Jack the back." He looked at her sharp. "There's a window in the back room," she breathed. "Above the cot. Too narrow. For a grown man. For a grown man, yes. A skinny man could. Grace. He could. Grace." 3 things happened in the next 4 seconds. The first was the sound from the back room of glass. The second was Tom's voice from under the bed in the back room where he was supposed to already be in the cellar, but was not yet. Because Tom had stopped to tuck a blanket around his sleeping brother. Tom's voice, high and clear, and absolutely without panic, saying, "Mister, you better not." The third was a gunshot. Jack moved. Jack moved before his brain had finished receiving the information that there had been a gunshot. He went through the door of the back room with the rifle up and his shoulder low, and what he saw in the back room he would carry in his chest for the rest of his life. A man, narrow half through the window, half in the room. Snow on his hat. A revolver in his hand still smoking from a shot fired into the floor. A warning shot a come out from under that bed boy shot. Tom on the floor by the cot in front of his sleeping little brother, with both arms out wide like a fence, one sock on, one sock off. The packet of oilcloth on the floor by Tom's foot. Jack shot the man through the window once. The man did not finish coming through the window. Jack was on him before the body settled. He yanked the body the rest of the way in by the coat front and dropped it on the floor and put his boot on the wrist of the gun hand and pulled the revolver out of dead fingers and tossed it behind him onto the cot. "Tom." "Sir?" "You hurt?" "No, sir." "You sure?" "Yes, sir. He shot the floor. He didn't shoot me." "Where is your brother?" "Right here, sleepin'. He sleeps through most things." "Get under the bed. Now. Hatch. Now." "Yes, sir." The boy moved. The boy dragged the little brother. The hatch came up the iron ring quiet in his hand, the way Jack had told him, and the 2 boys went down, and the hatch went down behind them, and the rug Jack had nailed to the underside of the hatch settled flat on the floor, as if no hatch had ever been there at all. Jack stood up from the dead man. He went to the broken window. He looked. The storm came in his face. The storm was empty. But the storm being empty was not the same thing as the storm having no men in it. And Jack Turner knew the difference, and Jack Turner stepped back from the window and went back to the front room, and Grace was still behind the stove with the baby against her, and Grace's eyes were 2 coals. "Jack?" "2 down." "How many up?" "Don't know." "Jack, that was the back." "I know it was the back." "They came at the back, that means they figured I'd be watching the front. That means they've been watching this cabin longer than tonight." He stopped. He looked at her. The truth of what she had just said landed in the room like a third dead body. "Grace, they've been watching this cabin, Jack. They knew the back window. Yeah. They knew the back window was narrow, and they sent the skinny one. They didn't just track us up here tonight. They've been here. Days, maybe. Watchin'. How would they? She closed her eyes. Jack. Caleb's notes. Caleb's notes had your name in 'em. The cold that went through Jack Turner then was not the cold from the broken window in the back room. Caleb wrote my name in his book. He wrote down everybody he trusted. How many names in that book, Grace? 4. 4. You, August Pell, a man in Cheyenne named Doyle, and the sheriff of Laramie. Grace. What? If they found that book before you got it back, they didn't. I had it on me when they came for him. I had it in my apron. I ran out the back door with the boys before they made the porch. You sure? I am sure, Jack Turner, I was there. Then how did they know to watch this cabin? She did not answer. Outside in the storm, somewhere on the slope below the cabin, a third man. A man who had been smart enough not to yell when his partner went down. A man who had been smart enough to wait while the skinny one tried the window. A man who was now very alone and very angry, and who had information neither Jack Turner nor Grace Harper yet. Had that third man cupped a match against the wind, lit the fuse on a short black tube he had carried up the mountain in an oilskin pouch, and threw it underhand onto Jack Turner's roof. Inside, Jack Turner had just opened his mouth to ask Grace one more question, and the question never came, because the roof above the back room blew inward in a sound that took the rest of the night with it. The blast threw Jack sideways into the front of the stove and took the sound out of the world for a second. He came up on one knee. His ears were ringing a high, thin note that meant get up. Grace. He could not hear his own voice. Grace. She was moving. Her mouth was moving. He could not hear her. He went to her on his knees through the smoke and put his hand on her shoulder, and the smoke was thick and gray, and the back wall of the back room was open to the storm now, and the storm was coming in. Her mouth said the boys. Jack went. He crawled. He did not stand. A man who stood in smoke was a man who did not breathe long. He went through the door of the back room, low, and the back room was not a room anymore. Half the roof was on the floor. The cot was under a beam, and Jack did not stop. Jack went straight to the foot of the bed and shoved the rug aside with his elbow and got his fingers under the iron ring of the hatch and pulled. Tom. Nothing. Tom. A small voice muffled 2 feet under him. Sir, you boys breathin'? Yes, sir. Sam, too. He woke up. He's crying. I got my hand on his mouth like you said. Good boy. Good boy. Stay down. Don't come up. The roof's gone in the back room. There is glass and beams. Stay down. Yes, sir. Jack let the hatch fall. He got the rug back over it. He went back through the smoke on his hands and knees. Grace was already up. On her feet. Holding the baby tight against her shoulder under the shawl, the oilcloth packet shoved down the front of her dress, one hand braced on the wall, blood on the inside of her skirt, and her face the color of wet bone. Grace, you sit down. I will not. Grace. They blew your roof, Jack. The next one comes through the front. You and I both know it. You just had a baby, 9? I know what I just did. Jack Turner, I was there for it. Where's the rifle? Grace. Where is the rifle? He picked it up off the floor and put it in her hand. He did not argue with her again that night. You hold the front, she said. Grace. You hold the front. I hold the kitchen window. He has to come from the south or the slope. The east side is rock. He won't climb rock in a blizzard. How do you know my cabin? Caleb drew it, twice, from your letters. Jack stopped for a half-second at that. Caleb drew this cabin. He drew it from your description of building it. He used to read your letters at the supper table, Jack Turner. He used to laugh about how a man wrote 3 pages about a chimney. Grace. Go to your window. He went. He went, but his hands were not quite his own hands for 10 seconds. Because Caleb Harper had read his letters at the supper table, and Caleb Harper had laughed about the chimney, and Jack Turner had thought all those years that those letters had gone into a drawer. He shook it off. A man in a fight does not get to keep his feelings. He cracked the front shutter half an inch. "He's movin'," Jack called low. "Where?" "Tree line, south." "Alone." "Looks alone. Could be wrong." "How far?" 60 yards, working closer." "Let him come." Grace. "Let him come, Jack. He thinks the blast did our work for him. He is walking up to count bodies. Let him." Jack almost smiled. He didn't. "You are a hard woman, Grace Harper." "My husband used to say so." "Your husband used to be right about a lot." The man on the slope came on. He was no fool. He came in zigzags using trees, but he came because the explosion had taken half a roof and he had heard no return fire, and a man who hears no return fire after a roof comes off starts to believe what he wants to believe. At 40 yards, he stopped behind a stand of pine. "Hello inside." Jack did not answer. "Hello, anybody breathing in there?" Grace by the kitchen window did not answer either. "I'll make this clean for you," the man called. "You hand out the woman's papers, you walk out of this. The judge ain't a cruel man. He just wants what's his." Grace's jaw moved. "You ain't got to die for a dead clerk's notebook, friend." Jack saw Grace's hand on the rifle stock. The hand was steady. The hand was the hand of a woman who had been told for 3 weeks that her husband had died for nothing, and who had just been told by a stranger in a tree line that he had. "Friend," Grace called back, and her voice carried like a bell across that snow. "You tell that judge something for me." The man behind the pine paused. He had not expected a woman's voice. "Ma'am, you tell him my husband's name was Caleb Harper." "Ma'am, you tell him Caleb Harper was a clerk. You tell him Caleb Harper made $42 a month. You tell him Caleb Harper come home every night, and he washed his hands at the basin, and he kissed his boys on the head, and he was the gentlest man God ever put on the dirt of this country. Ma'am, I am trying to—" "You tell him my husband saw what he was doing with that land. You tell him my husband wrote it down. You tell him my husband died because he would not stop writing it down. And you tell him—" She levered the rifle. "You tell him I am Caleb Harper's wife." The man behind the pine was quiet for one full breath. Then the man behind the pine did the thing a man does when he has decided the conversation is over, and he stepped out from behind the pine with his rifle coming up. And Grace Harper, who had given birth 90 minutes before, who was bleeding through her skirt, who was holding a newborn tight to her shoulder with one arm fired, one shot through Jack Turner's kitchen window, and put the man down in the snow. She did not lower the rifle. She held it on him for a count of 10 while the snow came down on him, and he did not move. Then she lowered it. Then she turned, set the rifle gentle against the wall, and slid down the wall to sit on the floor because her legs had finally remembered what her body had done that night. "Jack, I'm here. I might pass out." "All right. I do not want to pass out in front of my boys. They are under the floor, Grace. They cannot see you." "Good." Grace. "What? That was a hell of a shot. My father was a buffalo hunter. I've been shooting since I was 9. Grace Harper. "Yes, Jack." Caleb Harper was outmatched in his marriage. He was. He said so often. Jack got to her. He got an arm under her shoulders and he eased her flat on the floor with her back against the wall, and the baby on her chest gave a small bleat of complaint at the angle, and she shushed him and did not pass out, just closed her eyes for 10 seconds, just rested. "Jack." "Yeah." "How sure are you that was the last one?" "I ain't." "Then we cannot stay." "I know." "The roof is gone. The cold will come in. The baby will not last till morning in this." "I know it." "We have to move." "I know it, Grace, but you cannot ride." "Then we walk." "Grace." "There is a trading post 6 miles down. Willow Bend. Telegraph in the back of the dry goods. Postmaster's name is Eli Briggs. Caleb told me Briggs was straight. 6 miles in this with a newborn. 5 if we cut through the draw." "Grace." Jack. Jack. If we sit here, we freeze. If we walk, we got a chance. Tell me which one you want." He looked at her on the floor of his cabin. He looked at the gun belt on his hip. He looked at the rifle leaning against the wall. He looked at the rug on the floor of the back room that hid two boys he had known for 3 hours and would have walked into a fire for. "Walk," he said. "Walk. Get up slow. I will get the boys." He pulled the hatch. He brought Tom up first, then Sam, who woke this time and did not cry. Just put both arms around Jack's neck, the way a child does for a man he has decided to trust. And Jack, who had carried no child anywhere in 15 years, carried this one against his shoulder like the boy weighed nothing. "Tom." "Sir." "You walk on your mama's right side. You hold her elbow. You do not let go of her elbow even if she tells you to. You hear me?" "Yes, sir." "If she goes down, you yell for me. You do not try to lift her. You yell." "Yes, sir." "Sam, you hold tight to me. Don't let go. Even if your hands go numb, don't let go." "Yes, sir." "Grace." "Ready." "You are not ready." "I am as ready as I am getting Jack. Open the door." He opened the door. The storm hit them in the face like a hand. They went. They went down the slope away from the cabin. 4 people and a 4-hour-old baby and 1 rifle into a wind that did not want them. And Jack Turner did not look back at the cabin he had built with his own hands 15 winters ago. Because a man who looks back at a thing he is leaving is a man who does not get where he is going. The first mile took an hour. The second mile took longer. Grace did not speak. Grace put one foot in front of the other, and Tom held her elbow the way Jack told him to, and the baby was a small warm weight against her breastbone under the shawl. And twice she stopped, and the second time she stopped, Jack saw her sway, and Jack put Sam down for 10 seconds, and got under Grace's other arm, and took her weight onto his shoulder. "Jack." "Walk." "Jack the baby." "Walkin'." "Jack, Grace, if you say if I don't make it one more time, I will leave you here out of pure spite. Walk." She let out a sound that was almost a laugh. She walked. The 3rd mile, Sam started to slip. His grip on Jack's coat was going. Jack tightened his arm under the boy and felt the boy's small hands give up, and Jack thought, "Not him. Not tonight." And Jack stopped, and Jack pulled the boy around to his front and tucked the boy's head under his own chin and inside his own coat, and zipped what was left of the coat over both of them, and the boy fit because Sam Harper was 6 and starving and had not had a real meal in 3 weeks. "Jack, he's all right. He's against my chest. He'll warm." "Jack, you are carrying a child and a woman and a rifle in a storm." "Grace, you are carrying a child, and you walked up this mountain pregnant. We are even. Walk." She walked. The 4th mile, Tom started to cry. He cried silent. He cried the way an 11-year-old boy who has decided he is the man cries, without sound, without slowing down, just water on his face that froze on his face, and Grace heard him swallow once. And Grace, who had not had a free hand in 4 miles, said, "Tommy." "Yes, Mama. I am proud of you." "Yes, Mama. I want you to hear me say that now, in case I do not say it later. I am proud of you, Tom Harper. Your father would be proud of you. He is proud of you. He is watching you walk this mountain right now, and he is so proud of you he cannot stand it." The boy walked another 20 yards before he answered, "Yes, Mama." "Eyes up, baby. Town is close." It was not close. But Tom's eyes came up. The 5th mile took everything any of them had left. When they came down out of the draw and saw the lamps of Willow Bend below them, 3 lamps, 4. The small yellow squares of a small mountain town that did not know what was walking down at it. Grace made a small sound, and the small sound was the only sound she made, because Grace Harper did not waste sound, and she put 1 foot down, and then another. And Jack thought, "We are going to make this." And that was when his right boot found ice under the snow, and his right ankle turned under him, and he went down. Sam went down with him against his chest safe. The rifle went into a drift. Jack came up on one knee with Sam still tight against him, and his ankle would not take his weight, and he tried it twice, and it would not, and Grace 3 steps ahead of him turned in the snow and looked at him. "Get up." Grace. "Jack Turner, get up. Ankle's gone. Get up." "Grace, you take the boys. You take the baby. You go down, the rest the lamps are right there." "I will not." Grace. "I did not walk out of a blizzard with 3 children to leave the 4th one in a snowbank. Jack Turner. Get up. Lean on me. Get up." She came back up the slope to him. She did not have a hand free. She turned her body sideways and put her shoulder into his armpit, and Jack put his free hand on her shoulder and stood. And Grace, who had given birth 6 hours before, who weighed every pound she weighed, and not a pound less, took a man's weight on her shoulder and walked the last quarter mile into Willow Bend in a blizzard with a newborn at her breast, and a 6-year-old in his coat and an 11-year-old at her elbow. And she did not stop walking, and she did not fall, and when they came up onto the boards of the front porch of Briggs's Dry Goods, the lamp inside swung once, because somebody on the other side of the door had heard them, and Eli Briggs opened his door in his nightshirt with a shotgun in his hand, and Eli Briggs looked at the 4 of them on his porch, and Eli Briggs said one word, "Lord." "Mr. Briggs," Grace said, and her voice was the voice of a woman who had nothing left and was using it anyway. "I am Caleb Harper's wife. I need your telegraph." Briggs lowered the shotgun. "Ma'am, you need a doctor." "I need the telegraph first. Doctor second." "Ma'am." "Telegraph Mr. Briggs. Now. Please." He stood aside. She walked in. Jack came in behind her on his bad ankle, with Sam still inside his coat. Tom came in last, and shut the door, and put his back against the door, and slid down it onto the floor, because Tom Harper was 11, and Tom Harper had walked 5 miles in a blizzard holding his mother's elbow, and Tom Harper was done. Briggs lit a second lamp. "Back of the store," he said. "Telegraph's on the counter. Wire's up. Storm slowed it, but it's running. Send to August Pell, Rocky Mountain News, Denver." "What's the message, ma'am?" She did not stop to write it down. She did not stop to think. She had been writing this telegram in her head for 4 miles. "Caleb Harper's papers in safe hands. Land fraud Sweetwater Basin. Federal Judge Reuben Vance principal. 3 gunmen attempted murder of widow and minor children tonight. Bear Paw, Wyoming. 2 dead, 1 fled. Witnesses living. Ride hard. Sign it, Grace Harper." Briggs's hand did not shake. Briggs was 61 years old and had buried 2 wives and a brother, and had been postmaster in Willow Bend for 19 years, and had sent telegrams about births and deaths and weddings, and once about a cattle theft, and he had never sent a telegram like this one in his life, and his hand did not shake, because Eli Briggs was a man Caleb Harper had been right about. The key clicked. The key clicked. The key clicked. Outside, somewhere on the road behind them, the 3rd gunman, the one who had thrown the explosive on the roof, the one who had then taken a hit in the shoulder from Jack Turner's 2nd shot before fleeing, and who Jack Turner did not know he had hit that man, came down the last switchback toward the lamps of Willow Bend on a horse that had thrown a shoe, and he heard the click of a telegraph key through a back window, and he understood the way a man in his profession understood exactly what it meant. He drew his pistol. He kicked the horse forward. He came up onto the boards of Briggs's Dry Goods at a run with the pistol up. He kicked the door. The door opened because Tom Harper, sitting against it on the floor, was 11 years old and had nothing left in his small body to hold a door against a man. The gunman stepped over the boy. The gunman raised the pistol at Grace Harper at the telegraph counter. Jack Turner, sitting on a flour barrel with Sam still in his coat and a ruined ankle under him. Jack Turner was not the man with a clear shot. Eli Briggs was. Eli Briggs, 61 years old postmaster of Willow Bend, who had been a corporal at Antietam in another life, came up off the telegraph stool with a pistol from under the counter that nobody in Willow Bend had ever known he kept under there. And Eli Briggs put 1 round through the gunman's chest from 8 feet away, and the gunman went down on the floor of the Dry Goods, and his pistol spun across the boards and stopped at Tom Harper's stocking foot. The room was quiet. The telegraph key clicked twice on its own finishing. Briggs lowered his gun. "Message sent, Mrs. Harper," he said. Grace's hand came up to her mouth. "It's gone." It's gone. You are sure? Confirmation came back, ma'am. Received Denver. Pell on duty. Pell holding the morning edition. Grace put her hand on the counter. Her hand was the only thing keeping her standing. He's holding the edition, she said. Yes, ma'am. Caleb Harper's name will be in the morning paper. It will be in every paper west of the Missouri by sundown tomorrow, ma'am, if Pell is the man you say he is. She turned. She looked at Jack across the room on his flour barrel, with her 6-year-old still tucked inside his coat, and her newborn breathing slow against her own chest under her shawl. Jack. Grace? They are too late. Yeah. They are too late, Jack. Yeah, Grace. They are. And on the floor of Eli Briggs's dry goods, Tom Harper, who had walked 5 miles in a blizzard at his mother's elbow, and who had just been stepped over by a man who came to kill her, slid quietly sideways and went to sleep against the doorframe because the man of the family was finally allowed to be a boy again. Eli Briggs put the kettle on before he put the bodies out. That was the order of things in Willow Bend at 4 a.m, on the night a federal judge tried to kill a widow on a mountain kettle. First dead men second, because there was a woman in the room who had just given birth and walked 5 miles in a blizzard, and there were 3 children and a man with a ruined ankle, and Eli Briggs had been raised by a mother who believed warm water came before everything except prayer, and sometimes before that. He brought Grace a basin of warm water. He brought her clean cloth from his own shelf. He turned his back like a gentleman, while she did what she needed to do, and he made coffee, and he wrapped Tom in a wool blanket on the floor, and he put Sam still inside Jack's coat, still asleep against Jack's chest, on the long counter, on a folded quilt, because Sam had been asleep for an hour, and Briggs was not the man to be the one to wake him. The doctor came at 5:30. His name was Hollis Wainwright, and he was 70 years old, and he had walked through a blizzard from his house at the end of Main Street with his black bag in his hand, because Eli Briggs's son had pounded on his door and said only the words Caleb Harper's wife, and that had been enough. He looked at Grace for one long second. Ma'am, you are alive. So they tell me. You should not be. So they tell me. You delivered this child without a doctor. I had a doctor. She nodded at Jack on the flour barrel. He's just a doctor of horses. And a man's ankle, evidently. My ankle is fine, Jack said. Your ankle is the size of a melon, sir. My ankle is fine. Your ankle, Dr. Wainwright said, opening his bag, is a story we will revisit when I have finished with the lady. Mrs. Harper, may I? You may, doctor. Quick, please. There is a baby on me who has not been weighed, and a 6-year-old over yonder I have not laid hands on for an hour. He was quick. He was also gentle, and he was also good. When he was done, he stood up, and he washed his hands in Briggs's basin, and he said low only to her, Mrs. Harper, you have lost more blood than a woman is supposed to lose and live. I do not know who you prayed to tonight, but you keep praying to them, you hear me? I hear you, doctor. Now the baby. He weighed the baby on Briggs's small grocery scale with a clean cloth between the metal and the child, the way he had weighed 20 babies in Willow Bend over the years. He read the number. He read it again. He did not say the number out loud. Doctor. Ma'am. How small? Small. How small, Hollis Wainwright? The doctor looked at her. Something in his face softened the way an old face softens when it remembers something. He is small, Mrs. Harper. He is going to fight for every ounce for a month, but his lungs are clear and his color is coming, and he is sucking my finger like he means it. I have seen smaller ones make it. I have. You keep him on you. You keep him warm. You feed him every time he asks, and twice when he doesn't. You do that, and I will be here every morning for 2 weeks, and we will see this child grown. Yes, doctor. His name. Caleb Jack. The doctor looked over at the flour barrel. Jack Turner did not meet his eye. Caleb Jack Harper, the doctor said. All right. The morning came up gray behind the storm. By 8 o'clock, the wind had quit. By 9, the road south to Cheyenne was passable for a man on a fresh horse, and a man on a fresh horse came up that road from the south and not down it from the north. A young man in a dark coat with ink on his cuffs and snow on his hat, who came through the door of Briggs's Dry Goods, asking for Mrs. Caleb Harper before he had even taken his hat off. "You are Pell," Grace said from the chair Briggs had set her in by the stove. "I am, ma'am, August Pell, Rocky Mountain News." "You rode through the night." "I rode through the night, ma'am, and I changed horses twice. And I will tell you plain, your husband saved my life when I was 16 years old in a river outside Topeka, and I have been waiting 20 years to do something to deserve it." The story is set. It runs in 3 hours. Every paper from St. Louis to San Francisco has the wire by noon. Judge Reuben Vance will be in irons by supper time, or there is no law in this country. Grace put her face in her free hand for 10 seconds. She did not cry. Grace Harper did not cry in front of strange men. She just put her face in her hand. "Mr. Pell, ma'am, you will please print my husband's name above my own in that story." "Ma'am, that is exactly where I have already printed it." The story ran at noon. By supper time, 2 deputy U.S. Marshals out of Cheyenne had ridden up to the front porch of Reuben Vance's white-pillared house at the end of Ferguson Street, and they had walked him out in his shirt sleeves with no coat on his shoulders, despite the cold, because the older of the 2 marshals had decided that morning, after reading the news, that Reuben Vance was not going to get his coat from him. By the end of the week, the names in Caleb Harper's small leather journal had become indictments. By the end of the month, the indictments had become a trial. By the spring, the trial had become a sentence. Reuben Vance went to the federal penitentiary at Detroit and did not come out. Caleb Harper's name in the official record of the United States District Court for the Territory of Wyoming was written down as the man whose work had made the case. Grace had that page of the record framed. She hung it in the front room. But that was later, and a great deal happened before later. What happened first was that Grace Harper and her 3 sons did not leave Willow Bend for 6 weeks because the doctor would not let them, and because Jack Turner's ankle was broken in 2 places and would not bear weight for 4. They stayed in 2 rooms above Eli Briggs's Dry Goods, which Briggs would not let them pay for. And Grace cooked for Briggs and his son in exchange because Grace Harper would not eat a man's bread that she had not earned. The first week, Jack barely spoke. He sat in a chair by the window with his foot up on a crate, and he watched the street, and he watched the baby, and he watched Grace. And he did not say much because Jack Turner had spent 15 years building a quiet around himself. And the quiet did not come down in a night, just because he had caught a child in his hands. The second week he started to talk to Sam. Just small things. About a knot a boy ought to know. About how to tell weather from a sky. About a horse Jack had owned once who could open a barn latch with his teeth. The third week he started to talk to Tom. Different. Slower. Man to man, the way a man talks to a boy who has held a door against the wind and an elbow against a mountain. The fourth week, Grace caught him one evening sitting in his chair by the window with the baby asleep on his chest. The baby's small fist was wound into the front of Jack's shirt, and Jack's hand, the hand that had caught that baby out of the air, the hand that had held a rifle on a man through a door. Jack's hand was around the baby's whole back, and Jack was looking down at the small face with an expression Grace had only ever seen once before in her life, and it had been on Caleb Harper's face the night Tom was born. She did not say anything. She turned around and went back into the kitchen and put her forehead against the doorframe and breathed for 10 seconds. And then she came back out with a cup of coffee in her hand, and she set the cup on the windowsill by Jack's elbow, and she said only, "Drink it before it goes cold, Jack Turner." "Yes, ma'am." "Don't ma'am me, Jack. I birthed 3 children and walked off a mountain. I think we are past, ma'am." "Yes, Grace." "Better." The fifth week, Tom asked him a question. "Mr. Turner." "Tom." "Are you our pay now?" Jack was quiet a long time. "Tom." "Yes, sir." "Your pa was Caleb Harper, and your pa is still Caleb Harper, and your pa is going to be Caleb Harper, as long as there is a Tom Harper to call him by his name. You hear me?" "Yes, sir." "Nobody is your pa but your pa." "Yes, sir." "But I will tell you something else." "Sir." "I will be whatever else you need me to be, As long as you need it. For as long as I am drawing breath. That a deal. Tom thought about it. That's a deal, Mr. Turner. Jack. Jack. The 6th week, the doctor said the ankle would bear weight if Jack used a stick. The doctor said the baby could travel if he was kept warm. The doctor said Grace could ride in a wagon if a man drove careful. Jack hired a wagon. Jack drove careful. He drove them up the mountain in the back of an open wagon under 3 blankets, and Grace held the baby and the boys held each other. And Eli Briggs stood on the porch of his dry goods and watched them go. And Eli Briggs lifted his hat to Grace Harper as the wagon turned the corner, because Eli Briggs had been a corporal at Antietam and had been a postmaster for 19 years, and had buried 2 wives and a brother. And Eli Briggs knew a great woman when one walked into his store at 4 in the morning. The cabin was still standing. Most of it. The back room had no roof. The kitchen window was a hole. The front door hung crooked on one hinge, but the chimney still stood, and the front room was dry, and the stove was still in it. Jack helped Grace down from the wagon. She stood in the snow looking at the cabin. Jack? Yeah. This is a wreck. It is. You built it once. I did. You can build it again. I can. With help this time. He looked at her. With help. It took the rest of the winter and into a long Wyoming spring. Jack's ankle healed. Tom grew 2 inches. Sam learned to whistle through his teeth. The baby Caleb Jack Harper, who was supposed to fight for every ounce, fought and won. And at 3 months, he was the loudest thing in the cabin. And at 6 months, he was crawling. And at a year, he was walking. And at a year and a day, he was running. And at a year and 3 days, he ran straight off the porch and into a mud puddle and laughed about it. And Jack Turner stood on the porch and laughed about it too. Out loud, loud enough that the laugh came back off the trees. It was the first time Tom had heard Jack Turner laugh out loud. Tom told his mother that night in the kitchen while she was putting biscuits in. Mama? Tommy. Jack laughed today. I heard him. Out loud, Mama. Real loud. I heard him, baby. Mama. Yes. Is he gonna stay? She set the biscuit pan down. She wiped her hands. She turned, and she looked at her oldest son, 11 years old, when he had walked her off a mountain, 12 years old now with his father's chin, and his father's quiet, and his own steady mother's eyes. Tom. Yes, Mama. You go ask him. Me. You. You are the man of this house, Tom Harper, until your brothers grow up to be men too. You go ask him. Tom went. Jack was on the porch with the baby on his knee. The baby was chewing on the brim of Jack's hat. Jack was letting him. Jack. Tom. Are you gonna stay? Jack looked at him. He looked at him a long time. Tom Harper. Sir? I have not lived in a house with people in it for 15 years. Yes, sir. I built this cabin to be alone in. Yes, sir. Then your mama walked up to my door in a blizzard. Yes, sir. And I have been thinking, son, about the difference between being alone and being lonesome. I used to think they were the same word. They are not. Alone is a thing a man chooses. Lonesome is a thing a man pretends he chose. Yes, sir. I was lonesome, Tom, for 15 years. I just did not have the honesty to say it. Yes, sir. So am I gonna stay? Yes, sir. Jack looked out across the yard. Sam was chasing a chicken. Grace was in the kitchen window with flour on her sleeve, watching them, pretending she was not watching them. Tom, I will tell you something I have not told your mother yet, and I am going to tell you first because you are the man of this house, and a man of a house has the right to hear it first. Sir, I am going to ask your mother to be my wife, when she is ready. Not before. When she is ready. And if she says yes, I am going to build a second room on the back of this cabin for the boys, and I am going to fix the roof for good this time, and I am going to stay here until they put me in the ground. That a deal, Tom? Tom Harper, who had walked 5 miles in a blizzard at his mother's elbow, looked Jack Turner straight in the eye. That's a deal, Jack. Good man. Jack. Yeah. She is gonna say yes. You think. I know. Tom did not stay to see Jack's face after that. Tom turned around and walked back into the cabin, the way a boy walks who has done a man's work and is going back to be a boy for a while. And he went past his mother in the kitchen without saying a word, and his mother watched him go with a look on her face that said she knew exactly what had been said on that porch. Even though she had not heard a word of it, the way mothers always do, she came out onto the porch. She sat down on the bench beside Jack. She did not say anything for a long minute. The baby reached for her. She took him onto her lap. Jack. Grace. Whatever Tom told you on this porch? Yeah. I told him to ask. I know it. And whatever you told him? Yeah. My answer is yes. He turned his head and looked at her. Grace Harper. Jack Turner. You did not even let me ask. I have been a widow for 14 months, Jack. My husband is dead. My husband is not coming back. My husband would have wanted me to live, and he would have wanted his sons to have a man in the house who carried his oldest boy off a mountain and caught his youngest boy out of the storm. I am not asking you to be Caleb. I am asking you to be Jack. There is room in this house for both of you. There is room in me for both of you. Do you understand me? I understand you. Then there is your answer, and you did not even have to use up the words. Grace. Yeah. I love you. I know you do, Jack Turner. I have known since the night you stayed. The cabin got its second room by the end of the summer. The roof got fixed by the first frost. The wedding was small. Eli Briggs came up from Willow Bend in his good suit. Dr. Hollis Wainwright came with his black bag just in case. August Pell came up from Denver with a copy of the Rocky Mountain News under his arm, the issue from the morning of November the 16th, the issue that had run Caleb Harper's name above the fold, and he laid it on the kitchen table as a wedding present, and Grace put it next to the framed page from the Federal Record, and the two pieces of paper sat side by side on her wall for the rest of her life. Tom stood up beside Jack. Sam carried the baby. The baby pulled the preacher's beard. The preacher did not seem to mind. Years later, when Caleb Jack Harper was 19 and tall and getting ready to leave the cabin to go read the law in Cheyenne, he stopped in the front room one evening and looked at the two framed pages on the wall, and he asked his mother a question he had been afraid to ask his whole life. Mama. Yes, baby. My father. Yes. He died for these papers. He did? And Jack? Yes. Jack saved us. He did. Mama, who was my pa? She put her hand on his cheek. Caleb Jack Harper, you had two of them. One gave you your name. The other gave you your raisin. They were both good men. They were the best two men I ever knew. And I will tell you something else, son, that I want you to carry to Cheyenne with you, and to carry the rest of your days, and to carry to your children when you have them. Yes, ma'am. A woman is not weak because she is tired. A woman is not small because she is heavy. A woman is not finished because she is widowed. Your mother walked up a mountain in a blizzard with two boys and a child in her belly because there was a thing to be done, and the thing got done, and the men who tried to stop it are dust in a prison yard, and your father's name is in the book of this country forever, and a cold cowboy in a cabin opened a door he had not opened in 15 years because a fat woman with snow on her shoulders looked him in the eye and would not move. You hear me? Yes, ma'am. You go to Cheyenne, you read your law, you come home for Christmas, and you remember what your mama just told you. He remembered. He remembered all his life. And on the porch of that cabin, in the long blue evening of that day, an old cowboy named Jack Turner sat in a rocking chair beside the woman he had married 20 years before, and he held her hand, and he watched their grown sons walk out across a yard he had once thought he would die alone in, and he did not say a word, because some things a man does not need to say. Grace Harper had walked through a blizzard with the truth in her coat, and a child in her belly, and two boys at her skirt, and she had pounded on a door that had been closed for 15 winters, and the door had opened, and the world on the other side of it had changed, and she had not begged for any of it. She had earned every inch. And that is the whole of the story.